Hello. Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 7, Gender in Sports, and specifically talking about, equality and really how sports have transformed over time and the changes they've made for both genders. So go ahead to the first slide, which is quite detailed on the gender ideology, which we've already touched on in earlier chapters, but again, as you can see here on the slide, it's the ideas and beliefs widely used to essentially define what masculinity is, what is femininity, to put people into two groups, male and female. Really kind of form this, evaluation of sexual expression and really how do we organize our social relationships. That's what gender ideology does. Like, how do we interact with each other on a daily basis? Orthodox a gender ideology and the beliefs associated with the two sex approach. I mean, it just really talks about looking at the traditional way of thinking that there's males and there's females and we separate them accordingly. And as most of you, if you watch the news in any capacity, know our society is really going outside of those boxes. And there's a lot of questions about how do we approach certain situations because not everybody is fitting into the simple model of male and female. Go ahead to the next slide. So the next slide, basically breaks down, how we define it into a two-category system, if you will. It assumes, heterosexual male, heterosexual female. So when we're talking about individuals and gender, the assumption always is heterosexual. That's just the norm again. Leaves no spaces for those who don't clearly fit into the two categories. And I kind of skipped over it, but really puts opposites, male and female, and that they're two completely different things. And again, leaves no space for people who don't fit into those categories and really interferes and makes women lesser than men. Go ahead to the next slide. Research across many scientific disciplines show that biological sex is not manifested in either or male or female terms. Okay, so read through that again. Biological sex is not manifested in either male or female terms. It's manifested across many traits in terms of shades of differences. Okay, so in most societies, people are forced into one sex category. And this really limits us and really limits the possibilities for, most of society. Go ahead to the next slide. So gender ideology, a tool for maintaining status quo. So it just allows us for no change. So males are, identified as superior, very powerful, strong. Women are more nurturing. And, we talk about this a lot. The moms are the ones who are supposed to give the loves and the hugs, and the dads are supposed to be the tough ones. And I'm sure some of you had some moms that were tough and maybe some dads that are more nurturing, but that's really kind of where, you see some of the differences. This leads social worlds to male dominant, male identified, male centered. And that's where our society still is. It's still male dominant, male identified, and male centered. And you're going to see this throughout this chapter. Go ahead to the next slide. So gender inequality, as they essentially put there, always exists when sports cultures are these three things. Okay, so when male are dominant, meaning that the ability of performance qualification is related to male. You throw like a girl. Are you as fast as that boy? We're always comparing. The ultimate goal is to be like males. That's what it is. Male identified, it's a man's world, emphasizes, associate with manhood, and male centered. Men's lives just revolve around sports and the attention of athletics. Go ahead to the next slide. Facts about gender ideology. It is defined in ways that give men more access to power while restricting the behaviors of all men. So, we're talking about how males have all this power, but it also puts limitations on them, how they can act, how they feel, their emotions, what they show. Marginalizes gays, lesbians, bisexuals, transgenders by categorizing them out of bounds. So these individuals, they don't fit into this norm. They don't fit into this model, and so they're not normal, and they're outside of this kind of two structural system. Lead women to push gender boundaries while men are more apt to police gender boundaries for for themselves and women. So men tend to want to keep things similar, where women are constantly trying to break through and change things. Go ahead to the next slide. So gender ideology in sports, girls and women as invaders. So essentially what it's saying is that women are infiltrating the man's world. Females in certain sports may threaten traditional ideas about gender. So what they're saying about that is that nurturing aspect we talked about earlier. When women play certain sports, you're really challenging what a woman should look like. A woman shouldn't be doing this. A woman shouldn't, be doing that. Throughout history, there's been myths about, women playing sports to discourage them. One great myth is they used to tell women that you wouldn't be able to have children. If you work out too much, you're not going to be able to have children. And another myth that is still somewhat prevalent today is, you're not going to be able to get married. No male is going to want to marry somebody who's, all aggressive and rough and competitive like that. And encouragement variety of sports, or varies by sports, whether the sports emphasizes grace or power. Being a tomboy is okay as long as traditional feminine cues are presented. So meaning you can be all about sports. You can be all active.